Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the kind words. And I want to say I am very glad to be here and thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to deliver my keynote speech today. I will talk today about the challenge of the teaching evaluation and improvement in higher education. I think no doubt that this topic is very hot and debatable in higher education, and I think it is of concern to all of us as faculty at higher education. In fact, it is a common practice. It started mostly in North America, and it is now employed in many institutions around the world. In our institution in Israel, I am talking about universities and colleges. So we have two systems, and each of these is obliged for teaching evaluation. So it is a very big issue. Given that I am saying that, it is still not something that is fully acceptable on everybody. So I will talk about the challenges and the purposes, etc., of the teaching evaluation. So I'll start with a video that exemplify some of the things. If it works. Okay.
Hello, I'm a student.
And I am teacher.
Hey teacher, what are you looking at on that nifty little laptop?
Oh, just checking out my teacher evaluations.
Oh yeah? Any bad ones?
Oh, maybe a couple. Here's one. I cannot describe how much I loathe this class and this professor. If I have to get up at 8 a.m., it should only be to eat a cinnamon roll. There's really nothing I can say beyond boring, boring, and boring.
Constructive criticism. It's actually very helpful.
Well, here's another one. What can I possibly say to get this guy fired? Seriously, what do you want to hear? I will say anything. Please, please, please get rid of this guy.
Well, now you know what to do differently.
And the icing on the cake? Seriously, who let this guy in here? No sense of style, bad shoes, bad shirt, bad tie, bad everything. From now on, why don't you just try working from home on your nifty little laptop?
Okay, you hear a section, I think it's exemplifying that teaching evaluation is mirroring the talk on the net and outside the higher education. So students, especially now, when they fill these teaching surveys online, they feel that can bullying and even embarrassing their teachers. It is not the common thing, but we experience such things, and I just wanted to put this to provocate some ideas about the teaching evaluation. So I will divide my talk into three sections. The first section is an introduction, and in this introduction I'll talk about the purposes of the teaching evaluation, the teaching evaluation methods, why student evaluation of teaching, that means why we use these methods, and attitudes toward student evaluation of teaching. In the second part, I will talk about challenges involved in teaching evaluation, and then the structure. And under these, we have the definition and the structure of good teaching, the structure of the evaluation tools, the bias issues, and the interpretation and use, I can say also abuse, of the results of the student evaluation of teaching. And then I'll talk about teaching improvement, and I will talk about some experiences that I have in my capacity as the head of the Center for Improvement of Teaching. So what are the objectives of teaching evaluation? I think I don't say anything new to you, but anyhow, I want to list the things that we have in the literature. First, we examine student satisfaction with teaching. We obtain feedback that we can use to improve teaching. We generate information to be used for administrative decisions like awarding tenure, recruiting firing, etc. And then we produce information used to ensure quality of the institution or of the department. We are talking about accountability and the quality control. And we are asked to do that. We are required to do that. Yes? Okay. As to the methods, there are many methods to perform evaluation. One of these are, the most common of these is the student evaluation of teaching. Then we can use self-evaluation. We can use observation by experts. We can use portfolios. The mainly common method for evaluation of teaching is the student surveys. So I will devote a lot of time on these. Why we use student evaluation of teaching? From the standpoint of this institution, it is easy. It is quick, especially easy and quick because we use the internet now. It is online, relatively cheap, provide reasonable data, and in general, you can question that. In general, they are valid, okay? The other thing is related to the way we manage the higher education institutions. We use market methods. That means the consumer is always right. And our consumer is the student. So student satisfaction is very important. Because of that, we also should be transparent. We have to show how we ensure the well-being and satisfaction of students. So we have to have what we call accountability, visibility, and the transparency in our practice in higher education. The other thing is, and this is the most argument that a proponent of supporters of teaching evaluation use, that the students are the persons who are in class. They are the persons who observe the behavior and practice of their teachers. Therefore, they are valid and important source of information about what is going on in class. So we have to ask them, we have to survey their perception of good teaching. As to attitudes, our behavior is influenced by attitude. So about evaluation and what we say in our evaluation. When we talk about attitudes, we have to refer to at least 3 groups, principal groups. They are the students, the instructors, and the administrators. These are the main stakeholders, the main people who are very concerned, very count when we talk about evaluation. I will start with students. What literature, empirical research say about the student attitudes? The first thing, students are ambivalent about the usefulness of the teaching evaluation process. Why? Because they say, okay, I had last year very bad professor. I saw him this year teaching. So you didn't take my comments into account, so why I will bother? It is not true, but anyhow, this is what we hear from students sometimes. In their opinion, teaching evaluation is very important for improving teaching. If we use the results for improving teaching, it is important. They don't concern about the use of teaching evaluation for administrative matters, for promoting or firing, etc. But nowadays things start talking. The problem here, they are not always aware what we do with these results. And when I explain to them that we do things and we feed our decisions with this information, sometimes I can convince them that it is important. The last thing is some students view evaluation as means of releasing steam. I wasn't very satisfied in class. I have an opportunity to cool down. So I write something in the style we heard at the beginning, okay, in the video. Okay, as to instructors. Instructors are the same. They have also some issues about teaching evaluations. They value them for some matters and they don't believe in them for other matters. For improving teaching, they think that teaching evaluation is important. So they can uncover their strengths and weaknesses and they can use these in order to revise, to update their teaching. Some of them, the instructors, question the validity of the results for making administrative decisions. So they say, okay, you cannot count on my evaluation, student evaluation, in order to have some part of your consideration on my promotion for tenure or for giving me another rank, upper rank. If it is convenient for them, they want to use them. If it is not, they don't want to use them. Mostly agree that evaluation is an acceptable tool for assessing the quality of the institution. That means it is one indicator about the quality of what's going on in the institution. It is not the only indicator. It is only one indicator. For some professors, the evaluation provides only clues and tips about the quality of instruction. Why? Because the image of the good teaching is for these professors does not match, okay? Does not match the actual professor. That means students will image the ideal, the excellent, the good teacher in some way and compare their professor to that image, and if there is a gap, they will evaluate that professor negatively or put some negative ideas. What about administrators? Administrators use this evaluation for decision making, for personnel decisions. So because it is easy, it is quick, it is cheap, they hold more positive attitudes toward this evaluation than instructors and even than students. What about challenges? What challenges we face when we talk about teaching evaluation? Okay, first we have to say that the first challenge relates to the definition of good teaching. There is no one definition of good teaching. You can read the literature, and we have tons of research articles, and you will not find any consensus about what is good teaching, and especially the principal stakeholders perceive good teaching in different ways. That means when we talk about students, instructors, administrators, and we ask them about good teaching, they have different perceptions. There are different perceptions among professors in the same institutions. There's different perception of good teaching between institutions, okay? And then it is one challenge to have one definition. So let's hear Charles and I talking about what makes good teaching. Good teacher, that's...
When I think about good university teaching, I think about three elements. The first element is about preparation. One of the most successful comedians the UK's ever seen was a guy called Tommy Cooper. Tommy Cooper's act was that he was a dreadful magician on stage, but in reality, Tommy practiced for hours and hours and hours and was on top of his craft. Is this your card? No? But the thing about Tommy was all of that practice meant that when he went to do it, it worked perfectly. So my first thing about what really good teaching looks like, you've got to do the preparation. Lectures should be research informed and also practice informed, so that it underpins what happens in the classroom. That's the first stage. The second stage to me is that when you're in the classroom, it has to be engaging. The students have to feel like you're in the room with them and that you are enjoying it as much as they are. Those are the two first critical elements. And the final element, and sometimes this is missing, but it's always got to be there, there's always got to be a gap. There has to be a gap for the students to step into. What do I mean by a gap? If I said to you, you're in a driverless car and the driverless car might run over a person on the street or crash into a tree and kill you, what should it do? That's a gap. The students can discuss that for hours and hours and hours. It can't be that it's just you transmitting knowledge to them. There's always got to be a gap for the students to step into and come up with their own answers.
Okay, 3 elements. Preparation, good preparation, engaging, and the third thing is keeping some gap for the students to enter in this space and be active in class. Don't just present information all the time, and students will be passive, and they have nothing to do and to say within your class. So 3 elements: preparation, engaging, and leaving a gap for students. Okay? Who agree with these 3? Okay, most of us. As to perception, I think I went one more. Student perception of good teaching. We talked about that students, instructors, and administrators may perceive good teaching differently. So we'll start with students. For students, the ability to explain and to assist in understanding is the most important when they consider good teaching. In addition, they talk about clarity, or they value clarity of instruction, organization of teaching, and fair, reliable, and valid assessment. And these are the most important elements of good teaching for students. This is based on empirical study, asking students what counts for them as good teaching. Okay? Less important, we value in research these, but students don't value them much. Promoting creative thinking among students, fostering constructive relationship with students, and setting intellectual challenge. Our students nowadays are oriented to performance, to good achievement. So good achievement will benefit from the first set of elements, less from the others. They will see it later. They will not see it within their education. What about instructors? See this table. There are 4 elements. For the students, the first and the second are stimulating motivation and interest in the field, providing practical knowledge relevant to professional functioning of students in the field. That means preparing them for their jobs. These are 3 and 4 for instructors. That means there's a gap between the instructors and the students also regarding the 3rd and the 4th elements. So when we have a gap in perception, I think we have a problem in the ratings. So instructors will emphasize something and the students expect other things. So the evaluation will be influenced by these. Evaluation validity, this is the second thing. The first issue, the first challenge was the definition of good teaching. The second is the evaluation validity. And here we are talking about 3 elements that may threat the validity of the results from evaluation. The first one is the content and structure of the evaluation tools, the bias issue. There's a lot talking about bias issues, and the interpretation and the use of the evaluation results. As to the first one, there is no consensus on the dimensions of good teaching. We said that before. Why? Why we don't have a consensus? The first thing is the absence of uniform theoretical framework for effective and good teaching. There is no theory describing what good teaching is. The second thing is opinions about effective teaching vary among institutions and within institutions. We talked about that. And the results are descriptions of the instruction from the student's viewpoint. That means when we evaluate teaching by student evaluation surveys, we get the opinion of students only. So it is not the comprehensive picture of good teaching. Content and structure evaluation tools, how we can improve this, how we can reduce this threat on validity. First, we have to have clear understanding of the good teaching. This is a prerequisite for constructing instructional assessment questionnaires. So people who will be involved in developing these questionnaires, they have to have good understanding of what good teaching is, at least from the viewpoint of the institution they work within, okay? Second, the student evaluation questionnaires, I changed the name from teaching evaluation to student satisfaction from teaching, at least in my institution, because this is what we measure. Should measure different components. That means it having to be one-dimensional. It has to encompass different elements. The institution is supposed to choose the aspects that match its vision and mission. That means what is good for my institution may be not of value to yours. So it should be taken, the context should be taken into account. The other thing is all stakeholders should be involved. Sometimes they say, okay, you are the head of the Center for Advancement of Teaching at Tel Aviv University. You create the questionnaire, you administer the questionnaire, you analyze the data, you give me the results. This is not a good strategy. All partners should be involved, at least in this stage when we develop the questionnaire. We still in the questionnaire additional consideration. These are measurement considerations. That means questionnaire developers should be aware of the implications of their choices when constructing student evaluation tools. What we are talking about, we have to consider single item, general item, like how you evaluate this class on the scale of 1 to 6, or how you evaluate this teacher. And I don't like to evaluate the teacher. It is the teacher performance. It is the teacher teaching practices in class. So we have multiple item versus general item, number of options in the Likert scale. We are talking about midpoint. We have to have even or uneven number of options. Okay, we have to consider all these things. Okay, bias. This is another issue that threat validity. There are a lot of talking about bias. What is bias? So we have a definition by Centra. The Centra defined bias as bias exists when the characteristics of students, instructor, or course have a positive or negative effect on the evaluation, but are not related, are not relevant, okay, to the criteria of good teaching. That means sometimes they talk about gender, they talk about race, they talk about the personal qualities of the teacher. These are relevant for the evaluation or not. So we will see. Student characteristics. Student characteristics may be conceived as biasing factors. So we found in the literature and in my research that older students give higher ratings. For instance, students who participate in most classes give higher ratings. We ask them what percentage of the classes you attend. Less than 21%, between 21 to 70, 71 or more. So these who attend the class less than 21% are not eligible to evaluate the teaching. We just discard them from the final analysis, okay? Because they don't have the picture, the full picture about what happened in class. Okay, the higher the expected grades in the course are, the higher the set scores. That means when you ask students what score you expect in this class, and you calculate the correlation between these expected grades and the set scores, you find positive, significant correlation. Is it biased or not? Some people consider them biased, some do not. Some studies have shown that high grades in the course are related. And many teachers say, if you give high scores, you get higher ratings. Is it right? The answer is not always, and many times is not. So we have to be careful about our statements. Okay, we have also female students tend to give higher ratings compared to male students, especially to female instructors. Lately, some researchers show the opposite. Okay? Still, we are with students with mastery objective give higher ratings. That means those who come to get a grade and go home, they rate teachers lower because they want them to give them high scores. But those who come to learn, to understand, to master the material, they appreciate the teaching more than those who are performance-oriented. More interest is associated with higher ranking. When you ask students to what extent you was interested in the class, in the material, in the field before you attend the class, we have positive correlation between their interest and their rating. A stronger desire to take the class is tied to higher rating. Student advanced years provide higher evaluation. That means master degree graduate students give higher evaluation than first degree students. Okay, what about the characteristics of teachers? Female instructors ranked higher than male instructors, good reputation. That means they hear from their peers about the instructor, so they rate them higher. Instructors whose research quality is high receive higher evaluation. I don't know if students are aware of the evaluation, but many of them nowadays are on research gate, and they follow their instructors. I have some followers from my students. So sometimes they know, and my explanation is many times good researchers are also good teachers. And sometimes they can use their research to exemplify and to make examples of the link between the field, the theoretical field, and the practical field. Okay, young instructors tend to achieve higher rating. I am talking about results of research. Okay. If we have another list, I want to skip it. That means in order to keep some time. But we have a list of things that are related to instructor characteristics, course characteristics. What count in course characteristics? Many low-rated instructors say, okay, this is the group. This is this class this year. Sometimes I agree because I don't agree that you evaluate the instructors in one course in certain year, in certain term. Because performance is a process. And sometimes we have some downs as any humans. We are not consistently on the top, okay? So you might, in 1 year, have an outstanding award, teaching award, and the next year you have a difficult group, or you have difficult time, personal time as instructor. So my argument is, when you look at the low ratings, we generate a low-rated list from our faculty, but it is based on 3 years. It couldn't be based in 1 year. And if the instructor consistently, during 3 years, received low ratings, he or she has to do something in order to improve the situation, okay? Okay, so the first thing is class size. Some people say class size counts in terms of evaluation. So I think the theory, the hypothesis is when the class is small and intimate, it is easier to receive high ratings. not always, and Marsh have showed, okay, that there's a relationship until certain number, it was 28, I think, and beyond that, no difference, okay? So we talk about linear relationship. Seed scores in the sciences are lower than in the other disciplines. This shows up in each research, Because of that, we have reference criteria to see who is outstanding are different in different faculties. Okay, so that the reference comparison differs according to which discipline you are in. Courses that are perceived as too difficult and too elementary are given relatively low rating. So also the trivial courses that students learn nothing in, they are rated very low. Okay? Elective courses always rated higher than courses that are mandatory, and courses of specific content that mean not introductory. Introductory courses tended to receive lower rating than something is specific. Then courses whose syllabi are written in a friendly language are rated higher. Okay? So also the syllabi counts sometimes in terms of the evaluation. Additional threats to evaluation validity, the first one is the low response rate. This is very, very challenging, especially after we moved to the internet. We have a continuing struggle to raise the response rate. Okay? So before we used paper and pencil surveys. We came into class in the last class or before. We administered surveys. All students in the class fill these surveys. Now they fill these surveys in their convenient time, and then we have to convince them that it is important that they will be involved. I explain it is a right. We give them the right to say something about our work, to inform us and to tell us how well we are doing. And we are very pleased when we reach the beyond 50%. Okay? So in the first term, we are about 60%. This term, we have 51.2%. After many, many trials by deans, by rectors, by everybody, to convince students that very important for us and for them to be involved if they want to influence what we are doing at the university. The other thing is useless evaluation by the students. We had some of these. When they talk about something is not so concrete and not so relevant. So we will hear examples. This example.
What suggestions do you have for the Wharton Leadership Program? Have someone more relevant than Jeff Klein lead it.
Professor Lowe should go first to some undergrad or lower profile MBA programs and train herself how to teach before coming to school as reputable and with so high student expectations as Wharton is.
This is possibly the worst class I've ever taken in my life.
Quit teaching, something like that. And this one, no.
I can't believe this moron was allowed to teach at the university level. I can see how 9-year-olds can find an idiot like him funny, but college students can't.
these comments are useless because they do not relate to teaching. They don't say concretely what was wrong. So everything is wrong. They're talking about his shoes in the first video. They talk about the shoes, about the style, about the shirt. So what we can do with these things? Nothing. Okay. The question if what I described is biased or not biased. Many teachers, instructors conceive these as bias. So if female instructors receive a higher rating than male, so gender is a biasing factor. I don't know exactly if we can explain it this way, but because there is no consensus, I provide one example that also Mark talked about. When we talk about the positive correlation between expected scores and teaching evaluation, Marsh argued that students who learn more from the teacher, they expect higher scores. Then they provide higher ratings. So this is not a biasing factor, but this is an argument. Everybody has to convince the other part if it is it is valid or not valid. What does the research say? The results of the teaching evaluation, satisfaction of teaching, are generally valid. We have different view. I said generally, at least for the purpose of the institution, at least for the purpose of uncovering strengths and weaknesses of teaching. The results of the evaluation provide instructors and administrators with useful information. If they can use it very carefully with caution, they can benefit from this information. They can abuse it also. We will talk about it. This is what Marsh says. It is like dense, but this is his conclusion from his very comprehensive article 2007. Ratings are multidimensional, reliable, stable, primary, a function of the instructor, okay, who teaches the course rather than the course that is taught, relatively valid, again, a variety of indicators of effective teaching, relatively unaffected by a variety of variables hypothesized as a potential bias, and seen to be useful by faculty as feedback about their teaching, by students for use in course selection, and by administrators for use in personnel decisions. There is an argument about everything here, but this is the conclusion from a Marsh comprehensive study. Now I say some caution. It is important to examine the reliability and various types of validity of the student evaluation of teaching results systematically and periodically. That's mean, if they are valid today, for this group, for this term, it doesn't say anything about their validity next term. So we have to do that on time, all the time, to see how we can establish the validity and reliability of the evaluation results. It is also general in every measurement. You cannot take a questionnaire employed for some group and say, okay, they found it valid and the results are reliable, so I can use it. You have to establish the validity and reliability for your group first, okay? The other thing is, in the absence of conclusion evidence, and we know we have no conclusive evidence about the validity of the evaluation, the results of the set should be considered to be fragile, and the benefit and validity attributed to the set student evaluation of teaching should be treated with caution. That means we cannot take it for granted all the time. Okay, the last thing is the interpretation of the results. We administer the evaluation by students. We obtain reports for instructors and for administrators. That means the results can be accessed by administrators, departments, heads, etc., and the heads of the program, and by the instructors. And we have to be sure that they are understandable and they can be used in a correct way. So there's a potential that the evaluation results will be interpreted and presented inappropriately. So sometimes we send the evaluation, and then the evaluation is not consistent. In some items you have high scores, and some items you have low scores, and sometimes they discard the high scores. They just look at the low scores. I am talking about administrators, but look at the whole picture. It is not valid to look only at the exceptional things. And then sometimes we look at the means. The distribution is not normal. You cannot look at the mean. The mean is not representative of unsymmetrical or non-normal distribution. You can look at the median, for instance. But look at the standard deviation. Sometimes you have distribution. Dispersion is high within the group. Some give the instructor 2 and others give 7. It is the highest. So you cannot look only at the 2s and discard the 7s. You don't have to look at the mean, which is in the middle, okay? So you discard the variation, and it is not a correct interpretation. So lack of knowledge, why the situation is like that? Why they misuse the results? Sometimes because of lack of knowledge. Many people are not friends of numbers. They don't want even to deal with this. So sometimes they don't know how to interpret evaluation. We sometimes tend to look at league tables and rank people 1, 2, 3, 4, which is not a true case, and it is not real. So sometimes lack of knowledge and training in evaluation lead to misinterpretation of the results. Anyhow, the literature also says that people who are familiar and aware of evaluation and have some training, they are more open and more acceptable of the evaluation results. And they have some positive view of the implication of these, and they can use them to improve. And other, they might ignore them totally. Okay, the use and misuse of the evaluation, the ways it used affect their consequences validity. What is consequences validity? And I am not going to talk about validity, it is another lecture. So when we talk about consequences validity, we are talking about, are the actions we perform as based on the results are valid? Do we interpret the results into relevant actions? This is the consequence validity. If you fire an instructor because of the evaluation on one term, I doubt if it is valid. I doubt if you change the curriculum because of one evaluation of one course, if it is valid. So when you take action, you have to base this action in valid evidence, in valid evaluation. I am talking about a pattern. I am talking about a trend. I am talking about a process, a comprehensive picture, okay? And many times as we learn and teach in qualitative research, we have to make some triangulation from different sources of information, not only from the students, okay? The misuse result in the greatest threat of validity. That means if we use them in error, we make a big mistake. The other thing is the training. We talk about training. There is a problem with instructors at the university. How many of us have a teaching certificate. Few, very few. Every school teacher has to have, okay, say a teaching certificate. We don't have teaching certificate. So we never been trained to be evaluators. And we evaluate our students, no? So who expect us to be experts on interpreting the evaluation results? So some help is needed, some professional development is needed to be a good teacher, at least in service. We don't have it pre-service, we have to have it in service. There is no big action in this regard in higher education institution. Things change. That means we have workshops, etc. It's not enough, but we do it. Okay. The other thing that in addition to lack of training, sometimes they are not familiar with the research about evaluation. Okay, they also have no enough knowledge about this, so it is a big problem. How do instructors respond to load teaching? This is also my knowledge from my practice as a head of the Center for Improvement of Teaching. What instructors do when they get that the information, the message, they are listed in the black sheet. Okay, what is the black sheet? That means we obtain two lists. One is the 100 outstanding teachers in the institution. We have very clear criteria. They are on our side. And the other one is a list of the lowest rated instructors. Okay, and they are the lowest through 3 years. Okay, consistently. So each of these teachers got a message. He is included in this sheet, and his department got also the information that he is on the sheet, because we want the department to do some action to help this teacher, not to fire him, not to punish him or her. We want him to help. Okay, we want the institution to help them to improve, but it is not mandatory. Because of that, we have some problem. So what they do, sometimes if they value student opinions and they are open to critique, they will take it seriously and try to do something. Maybe they come to us to counseling. Maybe they do self-development. They go to the internet, they apply to workshops, they seek kind of professional development in teaching to improve their teaching. If they value the evaluation and the opinions of students and take these evaluations seriously. If they think that this evaluation is invalid, and sometimes it is kind of defense, okay, what they do, they ignore it. Many times they claim, I never open this evaluation. I don't see what they write. I don't count it. It is not valid. Who are they to evaluate me? This is the statement. The other thing is loss of motivation. I tried to improve once, twice, doesn't work. So if I am a full professor and I have many grants, they will do nothing to me. So if teaching is not so important, especially in research universities. Okay? Become desperate. They give up to some extent. Withdraw from commitment to effective teaching. So they say, okay, I'm teaching, I do my duty, I don't care if it is effective or not. This is what I do. This is what I know how to do. And I am not going to fuss with that. Give up, ashamed sometimes. They say nothing about it. Ashamed, they say nothing. They keep it to themselves. And accusing. I am not guilty. The students are guilty. The department is guilty. The questionnaire worth nothing. Okay? So give us some recommendation what to put in the questionnaire. You cannot discard it altogether. We are open to your comments. Please give us some insights about the questionnaire. Okay, what factors influencing instructor response? Why they respond in this way? Okay, what counts in this response? The instructor personality. I am not going to give a lecture about the Big Five, but the Big Five were researched in this for this matter. Student characteristics also, teaching and learning strategies, institutional and departmental culture. Okay, this is what instructors do. I'm going to skip it. And again, what define instructors who seek help, who want to change, who initiate change? They reflect on their teaching and they make self-evaluation. They seek and receive feedback from students all the time. And we are talking about engaging in personal and group counseling. I want to get to conclusion remarks. And these conclusion remarks matter to all of us because we are talking about the use of evaluation for administrative decisions. So one thing is student rating should be only one multiple measure of teaching evaluation. Don't count only in one source. You have to create a big picture about the practice and the performance of the teaching. The other thing is, in personnel decisions, a faculty member's complete history of student evaluation should be considered rather than single composite score. Don't rely on one score or one term, etc. Look at the history of that teacher during 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, and see the trend. Sometimes we even create a chart, how things change or stable during the years. For personnel decision also, evaluation and decisions should stand alone without reference to other faculty members. Sometimes we start to compare this instructor with that instructor, but he teaches another group, another discipline, in another department. You cannot compare one teacher with the other. Look at the trend and the picture of that teacher. The focus should be on the most common rating and comments rather than emphasizing one or a few outliers of rating. I talked about that. Don't look at the worst rating item and say, look, you are very bad here, but he is good in 7 things. Why you just hold this thing against him, etc. Okay, I think I am done. Thank you very much.
We can take only 2 questions.
Okay.
Our time is up.
Okay. You have questions. How many of you have evaluation system in the institution? Many. Yeah. I think it is going to be common. That means despite all the critics, it is here to stay. Okay? So it is wise to improve it, not to critique it. Okay? Yes. Please.
I'm Dr. Izham from National University of Malaysia. Congratulations, a very interesting research you have done, Dr. Fadia, Nasser. Maybe we have also our own evaluation by our student. Actually, we did it before the start of a new semesters. So we asked them, is compulsory for them to answer all the questions inside the system so that they can register for the next session. But we find out that actually, like your research, depends on who is the student, what year are the student in, and another is sometimes the time when you ask the student to respond. If you ask them to respond before and after, it's different different data which will come from that.
What we do in our system, basically, we administer the evaluation during the last 3 weeks of the semester. We do that periodically, that means every semester. And why is that? Because we want to feed the instructors to feed these things to other groups or next year. It is not a summative evaluation for the finishing students. The other thing is that in order to prevent bias in grading, the instructor can access the results after they feed the scores into the system. So we try not to prevent bias. And it is not totally smooth. Sometimes students, I get messages last term, I get strange messages like that. We evaluated this graduate teaching assistant because he replaced the professor who died unfortunately, during the semester. And after we gave the evaluation, he changed the syllabus. We want you, that message to me, we want you to open the survey again in order to change our evaluations. Yes, this is, and these are messages from students. So you have to be very diplomatic when replying to these students because you need them to cooperate with you in filling these questionnaires. So I say, look, we cannot open the surveys, but if you have a problem, you can go to your dean and write a letter saying what is the problem. And then if your department asks us, not the students, to do something, we will do it. So I don't say you are not right. I cannot do that. I am not so a diplomatic person, but I learn to be. Yes.
My question is, maybe we should do a 360 degrees evaluation, not only from the student, but also from our own colleagues, so that we actually know we are good or not. But sometimes the student is quite, when they have A's for that course, they are very happy with the lecturers. That's why one of our researchers done it before and after. That's the different response.
This is good for research.
Yeah.
For logistics at the university, it is more expensive. It is like time consuming, and to do that, we will not be. I think the university will not approve it to do it twice for the whole system. You can do it for research, by sure, okay? Yes.
I understand your data is based on all the evaluations that you got from all these years. My question is about, at the beginning you talked about attitudes of students, teachers. Could you give us an idea about the methodology you used? Did you do qualitative? Did you speak to them? Or was it quantitative?
We did a questionnaire that was administered not through the teaching evaluation, but was administered by the student union countrywide in all the country to all students, not all students respond to this, and asking them what their attitudes about good teaching, okay?
So not just in your university,
no,
in the whole...
It is countrywide, and the results were obtained by the student union who asked me to analyze the data for them, and we published after that article. I want to also direct your attention to a special issue I edited of the studies of evaluation, of educational evaluation 2017. It is about contemporary teaching evaluation. It is a special issue with 9 articles. At least 2 of them are very valid, at least. Okay?
Where is that?
It is in studies in educational evaluation journal. Okay? It is 2017.